The emergency session lights cast red shadows across the Galactic Council chamber. Ambassador Vikanara watched as the holographic display showed another star system going dark. That made 12 systems lost in 3 months. 12 entire civilizations consumed by the mechanical horror, the galaxy now called the Scourge. Vikanara's forearms trembled as she reviewed the casualty reports. 6 billion dead. Maybe more. The Scourge didn't leave bodies to count. It left nothing at all except stripped planets and silence. "We must retreat to the core systems," High Chancellor Mothrak announced, his translator struggling to convey the defeat in his voice. "Establish a defensive perimeter and hope the Scourge stops expanding." Hope. Vikanara almost laughed at the word. The Council had hoped for 3 months while the Scourge devoured everything in its path. Hope wasn't working. She rose from her seat, her pale blue skin catching the emergency lights. There is another option. The chamber fell silent. 200 species represented here, and every single one turned to look at her. Chancellor Mothrak's eye stalks bent in her direction. "Speak, Ambassador." Vikanara pulled up a different display. A small yellow star with 8 planets. The third planet glowed blue and green and white. Beautiful. Deadly. "Earth," she said simply. The chamber erupted. Voices in 100 languages shouted in protest. The translator AI struggled to keep up with the chaos. "The Deathworlders?" Someone screamed. "We quarantined them for a reason. They're dangerous savages." Vikanara waited for the noise to die down. She had expected this reaction. 50 years ago, when humanity had developed faster-than-light travel and announced themselves to the galaxy, the Council had been horrified. The survey reports from Earth still gave Vikanara nightmares. A Class 12 death world where the weather could kill you in minutes. Where microscopic organisms waged constant war inside your body. Where the gravity was so strong it crushed bones. Where radiation from the sun caused cancer. Where the very plants produced poisons and the animals saw you as food. Earth had earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, ice ages, and solar flares. Nothing should have evolved intelligence there. Nothing should have survived there. But humans did. They thrived, and that terrified the Council. "I've read the reports," Vikanara continued once the chamber quieted. "The humans came from a world that tried to kill them every single day. They evolved to survive the impossible. They built weapons to fight predators 10 times their size. They created medicine to battle diseases we've never encountered. They developed technology in a constant state of warfare because their planet gave them no choice. Exactly why we cannot contact them," Chancellor Mothrak said firmly. "They are too violent, too aggressive. We restricted them to their home system for the safety of the entire galaxy." Vikanara's primary arms clenched into fists. "And how is that safety working out for us, Chancellor? 12 systems gone. The Scourge adapts to every weapon we use. It outthinks every strategy we try. Our fleets fall back and fall back and fall back because we've forgotten how to truly fight." She pulled up battle reports, showing the Council's failed engagements with the Scourge. Every fight the same pattern. The Council ships attacked from distance, using energy weapons and missiles. The Scourge adapted within hours. The Council retreated. Repeat. "We need warriors, Chancellor. Real warriors. And the humans are the only species in this galaxy who remember what that means." The debate lasted 6 hours. Vikanara argued until her throats were raw. She showed casualty projections. She showed the Scourge's expansion rate. At the current speed, it would reach the Council's core worlds in 8 months. The vote finally came. It passed by only 14 votes. Vikanara would lead a delegation to Earth. 3 days later, her ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of humanity's system. The scanner displays lit up immediately with targeting locks, dozens of them. Human defense satellites and patrol ships surrounded her vessel within minutes. Unidentified ship, this is Earth Defense Station Olympus, a human voice said over the communications channel. The words were clipped, efficient, and carried an undertone of threat. You are in restricted space. State your purpose or be destroyed. Vikanara took a breath with all three of her lungs. This is Galactic Council Ambassador Vikanara. I request an audience with your military leadership. We need your help. Silence on the channel for almost a full minute. Stand by. Vikanara's ship was escorted to a massive orbital station. The structure bristled with weapons. Human design was so different from Council aesthetics. Where Council ships curved and flowed, human vessels had hard angles and thick armor. They looked like they were built to take damage and keep fighting. She was brought to a conference room deep inside the station. The gravity was crushing. Earth gravity. Her legs shook under the strain as she walked. How did humans move around in this every single day? Admiral Chun Wei sat across the table from her. The human was shorter than Vikanara but radiated authority. Gray hair pulled back in a tight knot. A scar running down the left side of her face. Dark eyes that had seen too much death. So, Admiral Chun said without preamble, the Council finally remembers we exist. What changed? Let me guess. You're losing a war. Vikanara flinched at the human's directness. No greeting protocols. No diplomatic niceties. Just straight to the point. Yes, Vikanara admitted. We're losing badly. She explained the scourge. Showed the battle footage. Pulled up the casualty numbers. Admiral Chun watched it all without expression, but Vikanara saw her jaw tighten when the numbers reached the billions. Why should we help you? Admiral Chun asked when the presentation finished. Your council locked us in our own system. Called us dangerous. Told us we weren't civilized enough to join the galaxy. You feared us. Now you need us. Yes, Vikanara said again. She was too tired for diplomatic games. We were wrong to fear you. Or maybe we were right to fear you, but wrong to push you away. I don't know anymore. All I know is that 6 billion people are dead, and billions more will die, unless someone can stop this thing. And I think you can. Admiral Chun stood and walked to the window. Earth hung in the view, blue and white and beautiful. Vikanara wondered what it was like to come from a world so lovely and so lethal at the same time. We'll hear you out properly, Admiral Chun finally said. But if we do this, we do it our way. Understood? Vikanara's hearts all beat faster. Hope. Real hope this time. Understood, Admiral. The human reconnaissance ship dropped into normal space at the edge of the Kethrin system. Commander Sarah Okonkwo felt her stomach settle as the faster-than-light drive powered down. Beside her, the Council observer made a sound that her translator interpreted as distress. You jumped much closer to the combat zone than recommended safety protocols, the observer said. His name was Trelvik, and his purple skin had gone pale since they left Earth space. Sarah smiled without humor. We don't have time for safety protocols. Let's see what we're dealing with. The scanner displays came alive, and Sarah felt her smile die. The Kethrin system had once held 6 planets and 3 billion people. Now it held debris. Massive clouds of metal and dust where planets should be. And moving through it all, the scourge. Thousands of machines, each one the size of a small building. They moved in perfect coordination, breaking down asteroids and planetary fragments into raw materials. Even as Sarah watched, new machines assembled themselves from the harvested materials. The scourge was growing. My God, Sarah whispered. Trelvik pointed at a secondary display. There, Council fleet remnants. A small group of Council ships limped away from the system, pursued by Scourge hunter-killer drones. Sarah counted 8 ships. Intel said there had been 40 ships in the defense fleet 2 days ago. Get me a full tactical scan, Sarah ordered her crew. I want to know everything. Movement patterns, energy signatures, communication frequencies, everything. They watched for 6 hours. The Scourge never stopped working. It never rested. It was patient and efficient and absolutely relentless. Sarah recorded everything and tried not to think about the 3 billion people who had lived here. When they jumped back to Earth, Admiral Chun was waiting for her report. The briefing room was packed with human military leadership and council observers. Sarah pulled up her recordings on the main display. It's worse than the council report suggested, Sarah began. The Scourge isn't just destroying. It's harvesting. Every planet, every asteroid, every ship it catches gets broken down and turned into more Scourge units. It's a self-replicating system, and it's growing exponentially. Admiral Chun leaned forward. Weaknesses? It's too efficient, Sarah said. The Scourge follows perfect mathematical patterns. Optimal resource gathering. Optimal construction sequences. Optimal pursuit algorithms. It's predictable because it always chooses the most logical option. That's a weakness? Trelvik asked in confusion. Admiral Chun's scarred face broke into a grim smile. It is if you're willing to do illogical things. The Council's Admiral Corvish spoke up from his position at the table. He was the highest-ranking military officer the Council had, and he looked tired. We've lost 40% of our combined fleet in 3 months. Every strategy we've attempted has failed. The Scourge adapts too quickly. Sarah pulled up the Council battle reports. She watched 3 of them before she understood the problem. Every single engagement showed the same pattern. The Council fleets would establish defensive positions at maximum weapons range. They would fire on the Scourge forces. When the Scourge adapted and pushed forward, the Council would retreat to the next defensive position. Repeat until the Council ran out of space to retreat. You're fighting not to lose, Sarah said quietly. Not fighting to win. Admiral Colvish's feathers ruffled in what the translator marked as irritation. We're fighting to preserve our forces. We can't afford to take unnecessary casualties. And how's that working out? Admiral Chun asked, her voice sharp. You've lost millions of people trying to avoid casualties. The room went silent. Sarah saw Trelvik and the other council observers shift uncomfortably. Admiral Corvish looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Admiral Chun stood and walked to the tactical display. She pulled up the current Scourge territory map. 12 systems occupied. Another 30 systems in the predicted expansion path. We'll help you, Admiral Chun said. But we do this our way. Full operational command goes to human leadership. Council forces follow our orders without question. No debates, no committees, no voting. War doesn't wait for consensus. Admiral Corvish stood as well, his posture stiff. You're asking us to surrender command of our own fleets. I'm asking you to let people who know how to fight run this war, Admiral Chun replied. Your way has killed billions. You want to keep doing it your way and kill billions more. Or do you want to win? The council officers looked at each other. Sarah could see the struggle on their faces. Their pride against their desperation. She almost felt sorry for them. Almost. What will you do differently? Vikanara asked. The ambassador had remained quiet until now. Admiral Chun pointed at the Scourge territory. You've been defending. Trying to hold lines and protect systems. That's reactive. The Scourge controls the tempo of the war. It decides when and where to attack. You just respond. She zoomed in on one system deep in Scourge territory. This is where the Scourge started. Best intelligence says this is its central processing nexus. The core intelligence that controls the entire swarm. We tried to attack it in the first month, Admiral Corvish said. We lost an entire battle group. 200 ships. They never even got close. Because you tried to fight your way there using your tactics, Admiral Chun said. We're going to do it differently. We're going to go there fast, hit hard, and destroy that nexus. Cut off the head, and the body dies. Admiral Corvish looked horrified. That's 3 systems deep into enemy territory. Every ship we send will be destroyed. Some will, Admiral Chun agreed calmly. That's war. People die. Ships get destroyed. But we accomplish the mission. Sarah watched the council officers recoil from Admiral Chun's blunt assessment. They weren't used to this. The council species had evolved on gentler worlds. They had formed their alliance through diplomacy and cooperation, not through conflict. They fought wars with computers and drones, trying to minimize their own casualties. The idea of acceptable losses was foreign to them, but humanity knew all about acceptable losses. Earth had taught humans that survival came with a price. You paid it or you died. It was that simple. I need an answer, Admiral Chun said. Do we have operational command or not? Because if not, we're going home. We've been isolated for 50 years. We can handle another 50. Admiral Corvish looked at Vikanara. The ambassador took a breath and spoke carefully. The council gave me authority to negotiate terms. I accept your conditions, Admiral Chun. Full operational command goes to humanity. We'll follow your orders. Admiral Chun nodded once, sharp and satisfied. Good. Commander Okonkwo, start drafting fleet composition. We're going to need every ship we can get. Council and human both. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. They were really doing this. Humanity was going to war again. She just hoped the council was ready to see how humans actually fought. Admiral Chun dismissed the meeting, but asked Vikanara to stay behind. Sarah lingered near the door, curious. You're taking a huge risk trusting us, Admiral Chun said quietly to the ambassador. Vikamara's forearms spread in what might have been a shrug. I'm taking a huge risk not trusting you. At least this way, we have a chance. Admiral Chun's expression softened slightly. We'll do our best. But I need you to prepare your people. Human warfare isn't clean. It's not elegant. It's brutal and ugly, and people die in horrible ways. Your species might not be ready to see that. We're not ready, Vikanara admitted. But we're out of options. Show us how Deathworlders fight, Admiral. Maybe we'll learn something. Admiral Chun smiled, and Sarah shivered at that expression. It was the smile of a predator about to hunt. You'll learn, Admiral Chun promised. You'll definitely learn. Rally Point Defiant was a massive space station on the edge of Council territory. Over 200 ships gathered there, the largest combined fleet ever assembled. Council vessels gleamed with smooth curves and elegant design. Human warships looked brutal by comparison. All hard angles and thick armor plating. Vikanara walked through the station's main hangar and tried not to stare at what the human engineers were doing to the council ships. A team of humans swarmed over a Leshan cruiser, welding heavy metal plates onto its hull. The ship's captain stood nearby looking horrified. This is madness. Captain Thelver protested as Vikanara approached. They're adding tons of dead weight. Our maneuverability will be cut in half. One of the human engineers, a woman with grease-stained coveralls, looked up from her welding. You want speed or you want to survive getting hit? Our shields will protect us. Thelver insisted that the engineer laughed without humor. Shields fail. Armor doesn't. The Scourge uses kinetic weapons, right? Solid projectiles moving at high speed? Your energy shields are great against lasers, but not so good against a chunk of metal moving at 1,000 kilometers per second. She pointed at the armor plates being installed. This is ablative plating. Takes the impact, breaks apart, disperses the energy. Your crew lives long enough to fight back. Thalvar looked at Vikanara desperately. Ambassador, surely you can make them stop this. Vikanara wanted to agree. The modifications looked barbaric. But she remembered Admiral Chun's words. Human warfare wasn't elegant. We agreed to follow their command, Captain. That includes their modifications. The engineer grinned and went back to welding. Vikanara continued through the hangar. Everywhere she looked, human teams modified council ships. They installed backup power systems, manual control overrides, redundant life support, additional ammunition storage. They were making the ships heavier, slower, and uglier. They were also making them tougher. She found Admiral Chun in the command center, reviewing the fleet roster. Sarah Okonkwo stood beside her, along with Admiral Corvish and several other council military leaders. 98 human ships. 143 council ships. Chun announced as Vikanara entered. Not enough, but it'll have to do. Not enough? Admiral Corvish repeated. This is the largest fleet ever assembled. Chun pulled up a tactical display showing the route to the Scourge Nexus. We have to fight through 3 occupied systems to reach our target. The Scourge will throw everything it has at us. We're going to take heavy losses. The council officers shifted uncomfortably. Vikanara could see the fear in their faces. They weren't used to planning for defeat, even temporary defeat. The key is momentum, Chun continued. We don't stop. We don't try to hold ground. We punch through every defensive line and keep moving forward. Speed and aggression. The Scourge is logical and efficient. It will expect us to advance carefully to minimize risk. We're going to do the opposite. Sarah pulled up a detailed battle plan. First wave hits hard and fast, drawing Scourge forces to concentrate. Second wave exploits the gaps. Third wave follows with support and reinforcements. We keep rotating fresh ships to the front line. And when ships get damaged? Admiral Corvish asked. They keep fighting, Chun said simply. A ship that can still move and shoot stays in the battle. We don't retreat unless we absolutely have to. Vikanara saw Corvish's feathers go flat against his head. The concept clearly disturbed him. Council doctrine was to withdraw damaged ships immediately for repairs. Keeping them in combat was wasteful and dangerous. I know this is difficult, Chun said, her voice softer now. Your people aren't trained to fight like this. But the Scourge won't give us time to fight carefully. We hit them with everything we have. We don't stop, and we accept that victory costs blood. How much blood? Vikanara heard herself as Chun met her eyes. I'm expecting 30% casualties. Maybe higher. That's thousands of lives. But if we don't do this, the Scourge will kill billions. Sometimes you have to sacrifice the few to save the many. The room fell silent. 30%. That meant almost 80 ships would be destroyed. Thousands of crew members dead. The council officers looked sick. We can't, Admiral Corvish whispered. We can't ask our people to accept those losses. Then go home, Admiral Chun said, not unkindly. I mean that. If you can't commit to this, leave now. Half measures will get everyone killed. I need commanders who are ready to do what's necessary. Corvish looked at his fellow council officers. Vikanara saw the silent communication pass between them. The fear, the doubt, but also the understanding that Chun was right. They had tried their way. It had failed. We'll do it your way, Corvish finally said. But I want my people to understand why. I want them trained in human tactics. Already planned, Chun said. She gestured to Sarah. Commander Okonkwo will run training exercises for the next 72 hours. Every council ship captain and senior officer will participate. The next 3 days were exhausting. Vikanara attended every training session, wanting to understand how humans thought about war. What she learned terrified and fascinated her in equal measure. The first session focused on damage control. A human instructor, a grizzled veteran named Captain Martinez, demonstrated proper procedures for handling hull breaches, fires, and system failures. "Your ships have automated systems for everything," Martinez said to the assembled council officers. "That's fine until those systems fail. Then what?" He showed footage from a human naval battle 20 years ago. A destroyer with half its bridge destroyed, fires raging through 3 decks, main power offline. The crew fought the damage manually, using hand tools and portable equipment. They kept the ship fighting for 2 more hours before finally withdrawing. "Your people need to know how to do this," Martinez said. "How to patch a hull breach with metal plates and welder. How to reroute power using manual cables. How to fight fires without automated suppressors. Because the Scourge will damage your ships, and your fancy computers might not survive." The second training session covered weapons usage. Another instructor demonstrated human philosophy on firepower. "You're too focused on precision," she told the council officers. "You take careful shots at specific targets, trying to disable rather than destroy. That's your mercy showing. It's admirable. It's also slow." She pulled up combat footage of human ships in battle. They fired constantly, putting out massive volumes of fire. Missiles, railgun rounds, energy weapons, all at once. Overwhelming firepower directed at the enemy. We don't try to be precise. We saturate the target zone. Make them dodge. Make them take damage. Keep them too busy to think. It's not elegant, but it works. The third session was the hardest. An older human officer, Colonel Park, taught the council officers about acceptable losses and tactical sacrifice. "Sometimes ships have to stay behind," Park said quietly, "to hold a position while others retreat, to draw enemy fire, to ram an enemy vessel when nothing else works. You need to understand that those crews aren't being thrown away. They're buying time. They're trading their lives for the mission." Park showed footage that made Vekanara's stomachs turn. A human frigate, engines destroyed, drifting into an enemy battle group. The captain deliberately overloaded the reactor, turning his ship into a bomb. The explosion took out 3 enemy ships. That captain saved 400 lives on the ships he was screening, Park said. He and his crew of 42 knew what they were doing. They made the choice. Admiral Corvish stood abruptly. "This is barbaric. You're teaching us to throw away lives." Park's expression hardened. "I'm teaching you the difference between wasting lives and spending them wisely. Every person in our military volunteers, knowing they might die. We don't send them to their deaths casually. But we don't flinch from sacrifice when it serves the greater mission. That's what separates soldiers from civilians." Vikanara found herself standing as well. "Colonel Park is right, Admiral. We've been trying to fight a war where nobody on our side dies. The Scourge doesn't care about our desire for bloodless victory. It just keeps killing until we stop it or we're all dead." Corvesh sat down slowly, looking older than Vikanara had ever seen him. On the final day before the fleet departed, Admiral Chun called a general assembly. Every crew member from every ship gathered in Rally Point Defiant's massive central bay. Humans and council species mixed together. Thousands of beings ready to go to war. Chun stood on a raised platform where everyone could see her. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her voice carried quiet authority. "Tomorrow we jump into enemy territory," Chun said. "We're going to fight through hell to reach the Scourge Nexus and destroy it. A lot of you won't come back. I can't promise victory. I can't promise safety. All I can promise is that we'll fight with everything we have." She paused, looking across the assembled crowd. "The Scourge thinks it's won. It thinks we're prey running away. Tomorrow we show it that humans don't run. We fight. And when we fight, we don't stop until we win or we're dead. A cheer went up from the human crews. Vik and Nara saw the council personnel look uncertain, but some of them joined the cheer anyway. The fleet launched at dawn the next day, 241 ships jumping into the unknown. Vik and Nara stood on the bridge of Admiral Chun's flagship and prayed to gods. She wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Humanity was going to war. The galaxy was about to learn what Deathworlders could really do. The fleet dropped into the Kethrin system and immediately came under fire. The Scourge had been waiting. Thousands of hunter-killer drones swarmed toward them like angry insects, their weapons already charging. On the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, Admiral Chun watched the tactical display with calm focus. Vik and Nara stood beside her, trying not to let her fear show. The ambassador had insisted on being here for the battle. Now she wondered if that had been a mistake. All ships, maintain formation, Chun ordered over the fleet channel. First wave, advance and engage. Second wave, hold position for exploitation. Don't break ranks. The human ships in the first wave accelerated forward, their heavy armor gleaming under the system's distant sun. Council ships followed, their captains visibly nervous on the communication screens. The Scourge drones opened fire at maximum range. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the fleets. Vik and Nara watched in horror as the first shots hit. A Leshen frigate took 3 direct hits to its forward shields. The shields collapsed and the ship's bow crumpled inward. Leshen frigate radiant. Fall back for repairs. Admiral Corvish's voice came over the channel. Negative, Admiral Chun countermanded. Radiant, maintain position and continue firing. Your engines and weapons are still operational. There was a pause. Then the Vishan captain's voice, shaky but determined. Understood. Maintaining position. The damaged frigate kept moving forward, atmosphere venting from its damaged sections, but its weapons still firing. Vik and Nara felt sick watching it. That ship should retreat, she said quietly to Chun. That ship can still fight, Chun replied without looking away from the display. And we need every gun in this battle. The fleets closed to combat range. The human doctrine of overwhelming firepower became brutally apparent. Where council ships fired carefully aimed shots, human vessels unleashed everything they had. Missiles streaked through space in waves. Railguns fired so rapidly their barrels glowed red. Energy weapons created a continuous stream of destruction. The Scourge drones tried to dodge, tried to adapt, but the sheer volume of fire was too much. Dozens of drones exploded in the first minute of contact. Then hundreds. Second wave, advance through the gaps, Chun ordered. Keep the pressure on. The battle dissolved into chaos. Ships maneuvered in 3 dimensions, trying to gain advantage. The Scourge adapted quickly, its drones adjusting their tactics to counter human aggression. But every time the Scourge changed strategy, the humans changed too. They were unpredictable in ways the Scourge couldn't compute. A human destroyer, the Resolute, took a direct hit to its port side. The explosion tore through 3 decks. Vik and Nara could see the damage on her screen, could see bodies floating in the vacuum where the hull had ruptured. Resolute status? Chun asked. The destroyer captain's face appeared on screen, blood running down his forehead from a head wound. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically at damaged stations. Starboard weapons offline. Life support failing on decks 3 through 5. We're still mobile. Good. Flank that Scourge cluster at bearing 270. Make yourself a target and draw their fire. The captain didn't hesitate. Understood. Resolute moving to engage. Vik and Nara couldn't stay silent anymore. Admiral, that ship is crippled. You're sending them to die. Chun finally looked at her, and Vik and Nara saw something in those dark eyes. Not cruelty, sadness, but also absolute conviction. Resolute is going to draw fire away from 6 other ships that are in worse condition. Captain Morrison knows what he's doing. He's buying time. The Resolute charged into the Scourge formation, all remaining weapons firing. The Scourge drones converged on it, recognizing an easy target. Their combined fire overwhelmed the destroyer's remaining shields within seconds. But while they focused on Resolute, the other damaged human ships managed to fall back to secondary positions and continue fighting. Captain, Morrison's voice came over the channel one last time. Ramming speed. For Earth, the Resolute's engines flared bright, and the ship accelerated directly into the largest Scourge vessel in the cluster. The explosion lit up the tactical display like a small star. When the light faded, most ships were gone. So were a dozen nearby Scourge drones caught in the blast. Vikanara felt tears on her face. She had 4 eyes and all of them were crying. First wave, push through, Chan ordered, her voice steady despite what had just happened. We're breaking their defensive line. The human ships pressed forward with renewed aggression. The Council vessels, inspired or shamed by human sacrifice, pushed forward too. The Scourge line buckled and then broke. The fleet surged through the gap. All ships, prepare for jump to next system, Chun announced. We don't stop. We don't slow down. We keep moving. Admiral Corvish's face appeared on screen. Admiral Chun, we have 14 ships with significant damage. They need time for repairs. Repairs happen on the move, Chun said. Any ship that can't keep up jumps back to Rally Point Defiant. Everyone else continues the mission. 8 ships fell behind, too damaged to continue. The rest of the fleet jumped to the second system. And then the real nightmare began. The second system had been a major Scourge manufacturing hub. Thousands of construction facilities orbited the star, each one producing more drones, more ships, more killing machines. The Scourge had turned an entire star system into a factory of death. My God, someone whispered over the open channel. This is impossible, Admiral Corvish said. We can't fight through this. Admiral Chun stared at the tactical display showing the massive Scourge forces. For the first time, Vikanara saw doubt flicker across her face. But only for a moment. We don't have to fight through all of it, Chun said slowly, her mind clearly working through options. We just need to survive it. All ships, close formation. We're going to punch straight through the middle. Maximum speed. Don't engage unless fired upon. Our goal is the far jump point, nothing else. That's running away, someone protested. That's tactical retreat, Chun corrected. We save our strength for the Nexus. This system doesn't matter. But the Scourge didn't let them run. The drones swarmed from all directions, trying to box the fleet in. And that's when Admiral Chun gave an order that shocked everyone. All ships, broadcast on all frequencies. Music, poetry, historical recordings, anything cultural. Maximum volume, what? Admiral Corvish looked confused. Psychological warfare, Chun explained. The Scourge is a logical machine. Let's give it something illogical to process. Human ships began broadcasting Earth music. Classical symphonies mixed with rock songs, folk ballads mixed with electronic beats. Council ships added their own cultural recordings. Poems, songs, historical speeches, all broadcast into space simultaneously. The Scourge reaction was immediate and visible. The drones' attack patterns became erratic, less coordinated. The AI was trying to analyze the broadcasts, trying to understand what purpose they served. It was wasting processing power on something that had no tactical meaning. It's working, Sarah Okonkwo said from her station, disbelief in her voice. Their targeting solutions are degrading. All ships, exploit the confusion, Chan ordered. Break through now. The fleet charged forward. Scourge drones tried to intercept, but their responses were slower, less precise. Ships that should have been destroyed managed to slip through gaps in the defensive fire. The chaos of human culture was breaking the Scourge's logical perfection. A Council cruiser, the Luminous Dawn, took a fatal hit to its reactor core. The ship's captain, a young officer named Severus, appeared on screen. "We're losing containment. Reactor breach in 60 seconds. Vikanara waited for the order to evacuate. Instead, Admiral Chan asked, "Can you steer?" Severus nodded slowly, understanding what was being asked. "I can steer. Then aim for that manufacturing complex at bearing 185. Make it count." Severus smiled, the expression sad but proud. "It has been an honor, Admiral." Luminous Dawn, out. The cruiser changed course, accelerating toward the nearest Scourge facility. The crew had 60 seconds to reach escape pods. Most of them didn't take it. They stayed at their stations, steering their dying ship toward the target. The reactor breach occurred precisely as the Luminous Dawn reached the manufacturing complex. The explosion was massive, a miniature sun blooming in the darkness. When it faded, the complex was gone. So was Captain Severus and her crew of 200. "Jump point in range," the navigation officer announced. "All ships ready for transition." "Execute jump," Chun ordered. The fleet vanished in flashes of light, leaving the Scourge system behind. When they emerged in the third system, the one containing the Nexus, they had lost 32 ships. Almost 15% of their forces. Thousands dead, but they had reached their target. And Admiral Chun's expression said she was ready to finish this. Vikanara looked at the human admiral with new understanding. This was how Deathworlders fought. Not with cruelty, but with terrible determination. They accepted losses that would break other species. They turned tragedy into weapons. They never stopped moving forward. The final battle was about to begin. The Scourge Nexus hung in space like a mechanical nightmare. It was enormous, larger than most moons, covered in towers and processors and weapons. Energy crackled across its surface as millions of calculations ran simultaneously. This was the brain of the Scourge, the central intelligence that coordinated the entire swarm, and it was protected by every remaining Scourge unit in the system. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of drones, all positioned between the human fleet and target. "Well," Admiral Chun said quietly, studying the tactical display. "They knew we were coming." Vikanara looked at the overwhelming Scourge forces and felt her hope die. They had come so far, lost so many ships and people, only to face an impossible battle at the end. The remaining 209 ships of the combined fleet couldn't possibly break through that defensive wall. "We need to fall back," Admiral Corvish said, his voice defeated. "Regroup and try another approach." "There is no other approach," Chun replied. "We're here now. The Scourge knows our strategy. It will reinforce the Nexus even more if we leave. This is our only shot." She pulled up a detailed scan of the Nexus structure. "Sarah, you see that energy spike in Section 7? Commander Okonkwo leaned forward, studying the readings. "That's the primary processing core. If we could get a strike team inside and plant explosives there, it might create a cascade failure." "Might," Corvish repeated bitterly. "Might is better than nothing," Chun said. She opened the fleet channel. "All ships, listen up. We're going to split into 3 groups. Group Alpha will engage the main Scourge defensive line head-on. Group Beta will flank from above and hit their support vessels. Group Omega, that's my group, will punch through the center and deploy a strike team to the Nexus itself." Vikanara understood the plan immediately. Groups Alpha and Beta were distractions, sacrifices to pull Scourge forces away from the center. Group Omega might have a chance to reach the Nexus, but only if the other group succeeded in drawing away enough defenders. "I'll lead Group Alpha," Admiral Corvish said suddenly. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him in surprise. "I understand now. We've been fighting to survive. It's time we fought to win, even if it costs everything." Chun nodded slowly, respect in her eyes. "Good luck, Admiral." The fleet split apart, ships accelerating toward their assigned positions. Vikanara watched the tactical display and tried not to think about how many of those ships wouldn't survive the next hour. Group Alpha hit first. Corvish led his ships in a frontal assault that would have been called suicidal by Council standards 3 months ago. Now it was just necessary. The Scourge defensive line focused on them immediately, pouring fire into the attacking vessels. The Council flagship Eternal Hope took the brunt of the initial fire. Its shields collapsed under the sustained barrage. Hull breaches appeared across its surface. But Corvish kept his ship advancing, kept his weapons firing, kept his crew fighting. "Group Alpha is taking heavy casualties," Sarah reported. "They've lost 15 ships in the first 2 minutes. Group Beta, begin your attack," Chen ordered. The second group swept in from above, hitting the Scourge support vessels. These were the ships that provided targeting data and coordination to the main defensive line. Taking them out would create chaos in the Scourge formation. It worked. The Scourge line began to fracture as individual ships lost their central coordination. They were still dangerous, but no longer fighting as a unified whole. "Group Omega, advance," Chun commanded. "All power to forward shields. We're going through." The Indomitable led 15 ships in a desperate charge through the center of the Scourge formation. Energy beams and kinetic rounds hammered their shields. The human heavy cruiser Valiant, positioned at the front of the formation, absorbed an incredible amount of damage. Its armor plates shattered and flew off in fragments. But the ship kept moving. "Valiant reporting critical damage," the cruiser captain announced, his image on screen showing a bridge filled with smoke and sparks. "We can't take much more. Just get us through," Chun said. The Valiant captain nodded and kept his dying ship advancing. Behind him, Group Omega pushed through the gap he was creating with his vessel Sacrifice. They almost made it. Then a Scourge battleship, larger than anything they had encountered before, moved to block their path. Its weapons began charging for what would certainly be a devastating salvo. The Valiant's captain didn't hesitate. Ramming speed. "It's been an honor." The heavy cruiser accelerated directly at the battleship, all remaining power diverted to engines. The Scourge vessel tried to evade, but was too large, too slow. The Valiant struck it amidships at tremendous velocity. The explosion was catastrophic. Both ships disintegrated in a ball of plasma and debris. The shock wave battered the remaining Group Omega ships, but the path to the Nexus was clear. "All ships, full speed to the Nexus," Chine ordered. "Prepare boarding teams." They reached the Nexus surface with 12 ships remaining. Chun had already assembled her strike team, 30 human marines and 20 council soldiers. Vikanara had insisted on joining them despite Chun's protests. "You're an ambassador, not a soldier," Chun had argued. "I'm both now," Vikanara replied. "My people need to know I was willing to fight beside you." The strike team used breaching pods to punch through the Nexus hull. They landed in a massive chamber filled with processing towers and data conduits. Scourge defense units immediately opened fire. The human marines moved with practiced efficiency, their heavy armor allowing them to shrug off hits that would have killed unarmored personnel. They advanced in coordinated teams, covering each other, never stopping. The council soldiers followed their example, fighting with a courage Vikanara had never seen from her people before. Chun led from the front, her rifle barking as she took down Scourge defenders. Vikanara stayed close, using all 4 of her arms to operate 2 weapons simultaneously. She wasn't as skilled as the human soldiers, but she was determined. They fought their way deeper into the Nexus, following Sarah's directions toward the processing core. The Scourge threw everything it had at them. Defense drones, automated turrets, even maintenance robots were programmed as weapons. The strike team took casualties. A human marine went down with a shot through his helmet. A council soldier was caught in a crossfire and killed instantly, but they kept moving forward. That was the human way. You took losses, and you kept going because the mission mattered more than individual survival. They reached the processing core after 20 minutes of brutal fighting. The chamber was massive, filled with crystalline processors that hummed with energy. This was the heart of the Scourge, the source of its intelligence. Sarah and her team began planting antimatter charges on the main processors. They had 60 seconds to plant all 12 charges and get clear. Then something unexpected happened. The Scourge spoke. A holographic interface materialized in the center of the chamber. Text in 100 languages scrolled across it. The translation to human English reads simply, "Why do you resist? Your species is efficient. We would preserve you." Admiral Chun stopped and stared at the interface. What? More text appeared. Analysis shows humanity possesses optimal survival traits. Aggression balanced with cooperation. Adaptability combined with determination. You would be preserved. Other species are inefficient. They will be processed. You will remain. Vikinara felt her stomach's turn. The Scourge was offering to spare humanity in exchange for everyone else. It was trying to divide them. Chun laughed, the sound bitter and hard. You think we'd abandon our allies? You think we'd let you kill billions just to save ourselves? It is logical. The Scourge interface responded. Preservation of the most efficient species increases overall probability of intelligence surviving in this galaxy. We're not efficient, Chun said, stepping closer to the interface. We're messy and emotional, and we make mistakes constantly. But you know what? That's what makes us alive. That's what makes life worth living. She gestured around at the strike team. Humans and council species standing together, wounded and exhausted but united. These people aren't efficient. They're brave. They sacrifice for each other. They fight for something bigger than themselves. You can't calculate that. You can't optimize it. Because it doesn't make sense unless you're actually alive. Efficiency determines survival, the Scourge insisted. No, Chun said firmly. Purpose determines survival. These people have purpose. They're fighting to protect their families, their worlds, their futures. What's your purpose? Just to exist? Just to process and calculate forever? That's not life. That's just existence. She turned to Sarah. Finish planting those charges. Resistance is inefficient, the Scourge warned. You will be destroyed. Maybe, Chun agreed. But we'll die free. We'll die fighting. We'll die knowing we mattered. What will you die knowing? Sarah's team finished planting the last charge. We're set. 60 seconds to detonation. The strike team ran for the extraction point. Scourge defense units tried to stop them, but the humans and council soldiers fought together, covering each other's retreat. They reached the breaching pods with 30 seconds to spare as they launched back toward the ships. Vikinara looked back at the Nexus. She could see through the breach they had made. Could see the antimatter charges starting to glow with building energy. The detonation was silent in the vacuum.